What is your vision with Nila Spaces right now?
So at the moment, we are focusing on urban needs. We're focusing on building something what we call is as future of urban living.
So, what is your advice to these young entrepreneurs coming in?
Sometimes they are unable to take a step back and look at it in the third party perspective in terms of does it really make sense?
Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome for another episode of Startup Stories India. Today I'm very delighted to have with me Mr. Deep from Nila Spaces Limited. Welcome Deep, it is lovely to have you with us today, and we're very excited to have a conversation with you. We've been following your work and we've seen your exceptional leadership skills and your operational skills have driven Nila Spaces to the heights that it is right now. And we follow that you've been working with a number of government projects, and the kind of reputation that you've been building over the past few years is immaculate. So we'd love to know more about Nila Spaces. If you could maybe give us a brief introduction about Nila Spaces and your journey that has been with Nila Spaces, we'll be delighted to know more about it.
Thank you, Tanika, for a very nice introduction. Let me just touch briefly on Nila Spaces. So it's an interesting story. We actually came into existence virtue of a demerger from our parent company called Nila Infrastructures Ltd, where the core goal of the demerger was to keep the real estate business away and infrastructure and construction business completely separate. And that's when the demerger happened at the end of 2018. And Nila Spaces is operational since 2018. We came into existence as a fresh company, in a way, a fresh listed company, virtue of the demerger, and we had mirror share holding patent demerger. So we had shareholders also, which were same when the demerger actually took place. But going forward, we were, yes, of course, excited to get back into real estate after a very long time, because historically we've been a real estate company. But Nila Infrastructures Limited pivoted its way to purely construction company starting from 2005 to the end that by 2018 we didn't have any real estate connection, or while there were some still assets in the book which were pertaining to real estate. So the demerger made perfect sense, especially for Nila Infrastructures, and it gave us a new entry into real estate post RERA had come in, because we were operational in the times where RERA was not really there, and we did not really enjoy it at that time because it wasn't really a level playing field. So after coming into existence, we've done a lot of things with Nila Spaces. We enjoy the flexibility and nimbleness of being a new and fresh company, which gives us a lot of more liberties and luxuries than any incumbent player out there in real estate.
So, Deep, you mentioned that the demerger has helped you shape the company that you're trying to build. If you could also elaborate at what Nila Spaces is particularly focusing on at the given moment, and what is your vision with Nila Spaces right now?
So at the moment, we are focusing on urban needs. We're focusing on building something what we call is as future of urban living, which is where we feel that the urban living spaces need to catch up to with the sort of urban workforce that is coming into existence. A lot of urbanization happening in countries like India. The future of living in urban India looks completely different than what we've seen it evolve in the last 2 decades. The pandemic has changed a lot in terms of user behavior, in terms of human behavior, in terms of their needs to build community, their needs to interact with people. And sustainability is also a very key part of it, because we are very confident that the first round of sustainable action is happening in the urban areas, and it's giving us very interesting opportunities to build very interesting spaces like the one that we're doing at Gift City, which is future of urban living, of course, and it's also evolving into more like a international city with a lot of diversity, where people from all over the country and some parts of the world are coming in.
So, Deep, now just to go back in your time and to have your experiences, what have your experiences been like? Maybe starting from your educational background, your working background. How is all of that shaped into coming about, this sustainable development sort of a thought? Because I understand that the world is changing,
Mhm.
and the ever evolving world does require, we're all inclined towards all of this. I mean, all the narratives going around are all inclined towards this, and we're all focused on that. So how did you come about, and how did your experiences shape this thought of Nila Spaces and working here with sustainable development real estate while urbanizing the entire place? Like,
So I've had I've done bachelor's of commerce from Ahmedabad here, where I've been born and brought up.
yeah.
I joined business right after that. I was taking care of our media business, which is another group company. That's where I
Hmm.
started my career, and
Okay.
I joined business thinking that I'm going to go to a good business school to do my masters. That never really happened. So it's the part that regret is probably a strong word, but yeah, sometimes I do look back and think that possibly could have been better if I would have taken some time out to
Yeah.
study. However, I think the basic education was pretty standard that we've had in India. I can't really, boast too much about my basic education really giving me inspiration
Mhm.
in terms of whatever that I wish to do. But when you talk about sustainability, I believe the first question that comes into play is, are you climate aware? uh,
Yeah.
and I think we're living in a world where there are a lot of people that agree, there are a lot of people that disagree with the
Very.
way that this is being handled, in the whole sustainability movement is being handled, and
Yeah.
that is, I think, the difference of opinion that we are always going to have. So I believe that the first question always is that, are you yourself climate aware, or you are probably going to use sustainability or this transition that is happening as one of the tools that you are going to use to sell or grow your brand. And I think you have to be very honest with yourself when you answer these questions, because your whole business model and strategy is probably going to change therewith, and the will with what you are going to take these decisions is also going to be different when it comes to you doing it because you really believe in it, or you do it because you think that it is going to make business sense.
Of course. So, Deep, like you said, that you have to you have to be conscious of about the sustainability part. So, what do you mean by, say, sustainability and development while being sustainable? What is your thinking like?
I feel that it's sustainability or this whole transition that we really need to have to
Hmm.
make a planet. I think we're entering. I think we're just about to cross the 0 hour, or what do they call it in terms of that? I
Yeah.
think it's 7th August. I was reading it somewhere that it's the day.
Hmm.
It's the day now that every single day that we are going to start consuming more resources than it's sustainable for the world. And I think if there is a tipping point in history, then this should be one of it, because this is
Yeah.
something that you can calculate. This is something that the data is proving. So unless we together cohesively do this, I don't think this is happening in isolation. And currently, I see the world divided somewhat in terms of what really needs to be done. And I
Yeah.
think there needs to be some basic consensus which need to come into action
Yeah.
for a very rapid and immediate reaction, because
Hmm.
we like to talk about sustainability, we like to talk about things that we do for sustainability. We are not really in a position of many of these countries which are endlessly crying at every single forum that they come into, that in the next
Yeah.
few years, if the world does not behave itself or change its way, then our existence is in question, because that is a data that has proven, because of the rising sea levels, and unless we are able to
Yeah.
reverse it a little, the very existence of these population is pretty much in question. And who's going to give them refuge is also a very fundamental question that nobody's able to answer.
So, If you could just guide us with a little bit of technologies that Nila Spaces have been using in, your time here to promote sustainability or to, get the whole technology going for sustainability and sustainable development.
Yeah.
So, what are the kind of technologies that you've been using?
So one part is technology. The other part
Hmm.
is, as I said, is the will to do it.
Yeah.
So first it started out as we want to build sustainable uh, places, and let me once and for all clarify, which I keep on saying it every time I'm being asked, that this is not sustainability is not luxury, it's a necessity,
Hmm.
and it needs to
Hmm.
be engraved into real estate in some form or another. The whole sustainability angle comes into place as soon as you start envisaging the project that you are
Yeah.
trying to build. If it's an afterthought, it will only be a green building in terms of sellability, like I'm using it as sellable while I apply for certain licenses in terms of green building and I'm getting it.
Yeah.
I feel that that's a great move in terms of I have great friends at Indian Green Building Council, and let me tell you,
Hmm.
they're still struggling to do the basic, which is to educate the developer that they must get their projects rated, so their designs are more sustainable. They can have
Yeah.
these sustainable design changes before they get the plans passed from every civic authority. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the penetration has been very very dismal, and I
Yeah.
don't think they would disagree with it.
Yeah.
That's because I don't think a lot of people are aware, or they feel that it's a big enough question, which I respect their opinion. Two is another angle, which always is one of the biggest dominators in terms of transition, is that the consumer is still not asking for it.
Yeah.
So there's one transition which happens because the consumer is demanding it, and there is one transition that happens because you really want to do it and
Yeah.
move towards that direction. And I think when it comes to sustainability, both of them need to move hand in hand. While I think people paying more for sustainability, or people actively looking at consciously sustainable places, sustainable products, is picking up. I am very very hopeful in the newer generation when I interact with people out fresh out of college. I see
Of
them
course.
doing their first jobs. I interact with a lot of the younger generation because of
Yeah.
a lot of things that we do, and I am very very hopeful that these people are definitely more conscious about the environment than we were. Our parents
Yeah.
are, and I see hope when I see this younger generation coming in, and I believe they are going to uh, turn the tide, which we have been talking about for years now.
True. So, that could be one of the biggest opportunities that we have. And to be very honest, I've also interacted with a couple of people in colleges and school. I myself have a lot of cousins in schools and colleges, and sustainability has been talked about in length now,
Hmm.
considering we also see a lot of impact in the society today,
Hmm.
right? We also see so many changes happening because, and there it is the need of the hour. I mean, there is no denying it. I mean, I stay in Delhi and I know that it's burning here, so it's something that we all need to focus on immediately. So what do you think are the basic, now I think you spoke about a few challenges, that is the awareness of it, right? But you still are hopeful that it's coming and it's happening. What are the other challenges that you feel are there in this sector? Because I'm sure there are plenty in
So,
each sector.
so I think we don't really need to ask anybody the challenges. The problem is that nobody really is talking about it until we actually came out with the carbon neutrality report with Deloitte. It
Yeah.
was not even in conversation. There's a
Yeah.
very clear statistical analysis which says that total 40% of total carbon emissions that are happening in the world, construction industry is responsible. Now that includes construction and that includes real estate. In a democratically free world,
Yeah.
very very large part of this construction is real estate.
Hmm.
It's because it's run by private. Now unfortunately it is so fragmented across the world, across the
Yeah.
country, across the region. Unfortunately, fortunately, however you term it, you don't really have big players in real estate across the world.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I just said it, but that's the fact. It's because it's not scalable. So you don't
Okay.
have a national real estate developer anywhere. They are all
That's true.
focused in their specific region. You talk about India, you talk about any other country. That's how it operates. It's a very regional play. Now, what that does is it makes it into a completely fragmented industry, which is difficult to regulate. And that is why I feel that unless we consciously step in as developers and do this movement, and some amount of help will come in from sustainability conscious buyers who are willing to look at products which are trying.
Yeah.
This is the only transition that we can push from this segment, which
Hmm.
is one of the largest contributors of carbon emission, and nobody's really talking about it because you have lesser polluting elements like transportation, and so much has happened in the transportation sector where so much is turning green just for sustainability, while they are not one of the largest contributors if you look at it. So
Yeah.
I feel there's a lot that needs to be done. Like, let's look at this transition again. I think there are other sectors like textiles in India. Now, if
Hmm.
you go and speak to a textile operator, now he's become conscious about his sustainable footprint. And why is that?
Yeah.
That is because he's exporting to European markets, and his buyer is asking him, "What is your carbon footprint? You give it to me."
Yeah.
So it is his
Yeah.
business is depend on it. On it is his business is interlinked with it. I was having this conversation, very interesting conversation. I would not like to name the person, but they said that very soon we are looking at least in some of the European countries which are far ahead in terms of sustainability consciousness, is that they're positively thinking about an equation in which your ESG ratings are going to derive the cost of your capital. And I think these are the
Yeah.
sort of strong moves that some of the governments will have to take for this transition to be much faster. That unless you are going to step up, and if you step up, we are going to obviously give you some benefits for them. It's as simple
Of
as that. You
course.
will have to give them motivations in terms of doing that because, as I said, it's a very fragmented industry. We're
Industry.
glad that we were one of the first to start out, but unfortunately, unless a group of people come together, or the sector in general comes together,
Yeah.
it's not possible to make a very large, meaningful impact.
True. So, I mean, yeah, of course, I completely agree with you there that, I mean, there is also a need for government intervention when it comes to regulation of this industry. And I think the government has fairly stepped in this industry when it comes to affordable housing initiatives.
Hmm.
And I mean, Nila Spaces have also talked about affordable housing initiatives, right? So just wanted to understand what are these government policies that you've also aligned with and the trends that have impacted your journey as well when it comes to the government initiatives and how the market is also being shaped in such a direction. Because I know the sustainable developments bit is still taking up and
Hmm.
players have to come about their own, but the government has still taken initiative when it comes to the affordable housing initiatives, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that, and how is Nila Spaces aligned to this vision?
So, incidentally, first project after the demerger was an affordable housing project that we did in Ahmedabad, and
Yeah.
the land was given to us as part of the demerger as one of the assets. And
Yeah.
at that point of time, we had the income tax ATIG scheme, which allowed you to have tax holidays or uh, uh, MAT. You can take MAT as your taxation on the ATIG
Okay.
if the project qualifies. And also at the same
Hmm.
point of time, the Pradhan Mantri Gru Awas Yojana, the PMJAY, had a motivation for private developers, where even if the buyer is buying in a private property, he used to get a cash subsidy of 1,67,000 rupees, and which was one of
Hmm.
the which was a very well thought out scheme, and there was a lot of boosts, there are a lot of housing that has been delivered, and
Yeah.
you have to commend the government what it's done in the last 10 years in terms of
Yeah.
affordable housing, in terms of the quantum of
True.
affordable housing that has been built by them as well as the private developers. However, that scheme
Hmm.
ended about 2 years ago, And we've seen a substantial decrease in terms of private developers stepping into the affordable housing space. I'm sure government is seeing it, and we believe that as the new government has sworn in now, they are going to come back with better regulations in terms of giving more motivation for private developers to develop affordable housing. And it's a sector that we totally love, and it's a sector that we would want to be associated with, because our group company, which is the parent company, Nila Infrastructures Limited, historically for the last 10 years, we've been very, very instrumental in the affordable housing space when it comes to constructing these houses for the government. May it be houses that are to be built, the slums to be rehabilitated, or the old government
Yeah.
houses which are to be remade. All of them, Nila Infrastructure has an order book which consists of more than 70% orders which are of affordable housing. So we are very closely associated with the inputs that are coming in terms of the gap in terms of the amount of housing that is needed. Even though we've made a lot of inroads in the last 10 years, but there's a lot that still needs to be done. And we are hopeful that the new government is going to relook at affordable housing and the priority and the motivation that they were giving private developers to participate.
So, Deep, tell me something. Is it difficult to balance when it comes to affordable housing and sustainable development? Because, of course, when it comes to sustainable development, the costs involved will be much higher than when it comes to affordable housing. So, how do you manage between that, or how do any players manage in this field? Because it will be quite difficult when you're talking about two contrasting things at the same time, right?
So earlier on the podcast, I said something which I really believe in. Uh, while a lot of people that I interact with, they feel that this transition in real estate when it comes to sustainability is going to happen on luxury projects, and I don't understand the rationale behind it, because I personally feel that sustainability is a basic necessity and it's not a luxury. Answering your question, I think developers are really spending a lot of money on needless things, things that they have been historically spending money on without questioning it.
Yeah.
Again, I keep on saying the same thing again. It will come down to one very basic question: what is your intent? If your intent is
Yeah.
there, it doesn't matter if it's affordable housing. See, it needs to you need to relook at your project. I'm not saying only in the manner of sustainability. There's a lot that is involved with it. So we are not only talking about sustainable spaces here. We are talking about spaces which need to interact with its buyer, its user, about what they really want and what is going to make their quality of life better, which is not happening.
Yeah.
Developers are only looking at they are not 100% to be blamed. The way real estate prices have moved across the country, most of the times the feasibility of project depends on the design, flexibility. More than flexibility, I think, in terms of what is the design efficiency. Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, in most of the projects in the country, developers' efficiency is the only thing that is considered. I also put the onus on the design architectural companies, the bigger ones who are really doing the job, and they're doing it really well.
Yeah.
I would educate more and more developers to start using more and more conscious architectural firms, which are going to ask you the question that this is optimizing the amount of construction that you can do. Are you
Yeah.
optimizing the user experience? Which is a question that most people are not asking. And which
True.
is what a good designer must ask, even a developer who is recruiting him, because eventually there are people who are going to reside in this building. It is not a piece of, it is not an asset on a piece of paper which is exchanging hands. Real people are going to live inside, real lives are going to be nourished there. So, on our project that we're doing at Gift City, sustainability is one angle of it. The other angle is all the elements that could include the amount of greens, uh, natural light. All of these have such big impact on the human behavior, the well-being, that it cannot be understated, especially in post-COVID times.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I completely agree, Deep. And all of this. A lot of times, a lot of people don't really have a dialogue about it. I've seen it in and around. You're absolutely correct when you point out these things that are so essential to us while we're living, and there's nobody actually having a dialogue. So you also mentioned that you had a collaboration with Deloitte.
Mhm.
Just wanted to understand, how do you think that impacted, or what was the importance of such a collaboration, and why do you feel that a lot of people should also be doing such collaborations, so to say?
So as far as collaboration is concerned, I mean, I wouldn't be rather an advocate of people using Deloitte or any of the big fours. I mean, obviously they come with a lot of experience, and there was one of the reasons why we engaged with them is that they come with data sets. They're coming with a bunch of experience in parts of the world which are much more climate aware than we are, like Scandinavia, like the Oceanica, and all of these places. And they have operational teams there which they engage with. They're also operational in Europe, where ESG compliances are far ahead than places like India will ever be. So they brought in a lot of perspective in terms of global perspective, in terms of what they're looking at. Plus, we wanted a global player because we tried and searched about what can be really done about these emissions, and we couldn't really find any relevant developer who has tried to do anything about carbon emissions that are generated in the construction process. It's very
Yeah.
interesting, Tanika, that we are still having conversations about basic conversations about certification of green buildings, where the
Hmm.
penetration itself is very low. What that certificate
Yeah.
basically does is that you have taken into equation certain parameters in terms of designing the building, so that the carbon emissions of the building are going to be a little lesser than your conventional building. Now, this we
Yeah.
are talking about once the building is in play. The
Hmm.
majority of carbon emission is happening in the construction process. Are you even
Yeah.
aware about how much you're polluting? Let me not go all the way and say that like we tried to neutralize the project. Even if you don't neutralize the project, go out and at least do an audit of what is the carbon emission that you are going to create. Maybe it is going to
Yeah.
instill something into you that why not I use something else which is going to create 10% lesser emissions. I think that awareness is where the start is. The awareness is
Hmm.
important.
I mean, I completely align with that. I mean, like we've been discussing, it's the awareness that is very, very essential in this field,
Hmm.
considering it's still developing. It's at, I wouldn't say at a nascent stage, but it's been talked about, but nobody is actually putting a lot
It's
of.
absolutely, Tariq. I'm sorry to say, but it's not even in the nascent stage. I see big
Yeah.
developers, I see reputed developers saying that we've delivered these many green homes. Define a green home to me.
Yeah.
It's not a certificate that you take from a specific organization claiming it
Yeah.
green. As I said, you have to first you know commit to the idea. I,
Yeah.
Either I am riding the bandwagon in terms of green building and sustainability is a good hashtag right now and sellable, so I'm going
Hmm.
to do it, or I'm actually talking about it, or and serious about doing something about
Exactly. Because now it's become like a propaganda that you have to
it.
talk
Everybody
about.
is going in the next 2 years. Everybody is going to talk about green buildings. My one very basic question uh,
How do you
to a house buyer is go and ask them what they're really doing about green building. So it starts from very very small things, Tanika, that you do. So when you talk about our project, in our project we have published zero uh, brochures. It was against the entire community, which really loves these fancy brochures that you print it
Yeah.
on piece of paper. Two, we do not give a single printout to our consumer, and none of the paperwork is happening via paper, apart from the legal paperwork that the government demands, obviously for registration of his property. That is the only piece of paper that we are using. Our
Yeah.
cars that we are using on the project to show people around our electric vehicles. it needs to come from within, and it needs to come from all avenues that you have in terms of consciousness. Otherwise, it's mere lip service, nothing else, I feel.
That's extremely true. I mean, I've seen most people talking about it being extremely sentimental and aligned with things like this, but they're not doing anything.
It's the same guy who tells you that he's climate aware, and you see him later drinking water in his pet bottle. So,
That's that is extremely true. Yeah, I completely agree with that. But Deep, you said that a house buyer needs to ask a certain questions, right? When you go and when you're talking about green housing, they need to know.
Sorry, Tanika, but I'm going to interrupt you because something that you said triggered something into me.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Is a first-hand experience that we have. I was talking to the team. This was right after the demerger, and
Yeah.
this was affordable housing, and
Mm-hmm.
these people would come and ask us a question that will he get her house? Now, it's a very deep question because,
Yeah.
for historic number of years and even today, I feel very sad when I go to these developers who are making affordable houses and have been making affordable houses for years.
Hmm.
The consumer is not being treated well. The in most of the real estate, I mean, you forget
Yeah.
luxury real estate where the consumer experience has moved to the sky
Hmm.
in terms of they're gonna roll out the red carpet for you everywhere.
Yeah.
But a basic house buyer, when I'm telling him to ask questions, it also triggers in me that when they ask these basic questions, what are the questions that they're going to ask the
Yeah.
developer? Because most of the times they are the ones who are on the other side where they don't have a lot of options. The market's not as competitive. Though I feel most of the urban areas pockets now have become largely very very competitive, but I don't see that mindset of the developer evolving. Please don't take it as a general statement. I think some of the developers are doing so well in terms of consumer experience, and we really take inspiration from them. But in general, the sector has a lot to do when it comes to consumer experience, listening to the consumer, delivering them
Yeah.
what they want.
Exactly, because a lot of time, a lot of consumers are quite lost, especially when it comes to, like I'm saying, sustainable development. Like if I had to go and supposedly I had to ask a few questions, I'd still like to say that I come from a sort of society where I know or have been given that educational background, so to say.
Hmm.
But I think when it comes to even my parents, they wouldn't really. They would see the house, they would ask the price, they would look at all of that. But I don't think they will ask any sustainable development questions. So according to you, what are these questions that a consumer should ask?
Hmm.
Being conscious of the fact that we need to move towards this,
Hmm.
right? Being conscious about the fact that this is the need of the hour,
Hmm. Hmm.
like a general consumer.
See, the general questions are very general, and
Yeah.
I think one. See, some of the things people really take care of, as I said, like
Hmm.
if they go to any project, they will go and find out a unit in which there is crosswind.
Yeah.
They will go out
Yeah.
and find a unit in which from the service area there is light coming into the kitchen, because they don't like dark kitchens in terms of house
Yeah.
owners. So these are basic
Yeah.
things that people take care of. My
Hmm.
question is much deeper. You as a
Yeah.
buyer went out and bought a unit which has this. Developer is
Hmm.
creating an inventory in which 40% does not have access to light.
Yeah.
Somebody is going to live in that 40%, because by the
True.
time the buyer is going to come, he may not have option of that inventory available. So
Yeah.
the larger difference is obviously going to happen once more developers come into play and become more and more conscious. But as I think, as the buyer suggests, very strong study that I read. I'm trying to find out the basis of the study, but I'm unable to, so I won't cite it beyond the point. But it was a very interesting study which said that the yeah, Gen Z is interested in paying about 30% premium for sustainable products compared to a conventional product, and
Yeah.
which I believe is a complete change of mindset from what our generation has and what
Yeah.
our parents as a generation has been.
True. True, true. Extremely. I mean, I completely agree with you because I've also seen this trend coming about. So, based on this, I'd like to ask a question. What do you think the other predictions that you feel that are going to come about in the next, say, about 5 to 6 years in this field, particularly maybe sustainable development and technology investment in this field? What do you think is going to happen? Being
I
a big player yourself in this field.
I don't know. I don't know what is going to happen, but I can give you a list of things that I would want it to happen
Yeah,
for a
for
faster
sure.
transition. So one is, I think the fundamental thing. Probably people are not going to like me saying it, but I think first of all the environmental laws for the country needs to change when it comes to real estate. So
Okay.
few years ago, the environmental ministry brought urban areas and urban pockets of where more construction than 20,000 square meter is happening into the purview of environmental clearance. Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, those laws have not been changed for more than a decade. What you need
Hmm.
for an environmental clearance in a urban building is to have a rainwater harvesting system, which is a very basic system which definitely needs to be there, and plant
Yeah.
some trees. And this is all. I think it needs to change because we need to do more. And unless the government asks us to do more, we are not going to do it. So some of the fundamental changes need to happen, and it starts with a very basic thing, because this applies across the country. So this transition, whatever change that they do, will apply with the country. Two, I would like for good engagement, more engagement to come in, to for developers to come in and say that I want to do more for the environment. So let me talk about the carbon neutrality report that we did with Deloitte. I asked them a question when I wanted to neutralize the project, that what's the definition of a carbon neutral building? Unfortunately, the definition of carbon neutral building in India as it stands today is a building that generates as much energy using renewable resources that as the amount of energy that it's consuming. Now, that's impossible for me to do in an urban setting because I
Yeah.
don't have the surface area. Even if I say
Exactly.
that my entire building or the facade of the building is going to be solar panels, which is also very expensive, but that's the only way I can do it. So what
Yeah.
about me? And your majority of construction and your majority of pollution is happening in the urban areas. So why not have better definitions for people who really want to do more rather than just generation of renewable resources? And I see, I'm not saying the definition is wrong. See, our problem is not wrong policies. Our problem is not things are not there in the policy. Things are not being updated very frequently, and we're seeing how quickly the world's changing now.
Yeah.
So if there's one thing that we can do better, I feel, is to amend policies, is to revisit policies, is to relook at laws very very quickly as things are moving. And
Yeah.
that's what I believe needs to be done. That's one part of it. Two, as I
Yeah.
said, is more on the developers coming in and doing the three, bringing in more rules for construction material suppliers. I will tell you why. I am carbon neutral right now, or rather, I as a wrong word. We as Nila Spaces Limited are carbon neutral, and it's a big statement because we haven't found anybody in the country who is. And this isn't about greenwashing any of the stuff. It's about, as I said, it's about the consciousness of what are the carbon emissions that you are producing, and my
Yeah.
willingness to do something about it. Now,
Yeah.
whatever that we have done is the only way, or is the only correct way to do it. We've never said it, but we want conversations to open. Nobody's really talking about it. Nobody's even questioning the construction gas emissions because they are not in question. We are still talking about basic things of making sustainable designs. What about the
True.
construction process? Two, I want construction industry to be regulated by this because my next target is net zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, if my target as a developer is net zero,
Yeah.
I can't do it till my suppliers are going to be more conscious about their carbon footprint, because they don't simply have any of this data available to them because it's not required.
Yeah.
When a small textile exporter in India is required by his buyer
Yeah.
to give out his entire line of carbon emission, we can easily have certain regulations coming in for the construction industry, which is the biggest industry, one of
True. It contributes a
the
lot.
most fastest growing industry in terms of the amount of consumption that is going to happen in the size is huge. and
Yeah.
unless you are going to make them accountable, I even on a project that we are doing right now, which is carbon neutral project, we are currently in talks with so many of the suppliers, and we are manually trying to figure out a few suppliers whom we know for the fact are a little more conscious than the others. But why not have a little more level playing field in terms of regulation, so that it's easier for the sectors? I think these are the few changes I think we can start with, and we will see a lot of change. The fifth change obviously is not in our control. Is as I said, is the consumer behavior, and how
Yeah.
quickly that is going to change.
So, I mean, that is a very valid point that you've given. I mean, all of these changes are something that needs to come about in order for this to be promoted.
Mhm.
Now, when it comes to only Neela Spaces, what is your vision like, or what are the milestones or goals that you're looking to achieve when it comes only to Neela Spaces, and how you would like to contribute to this idea as a whole?
So we will continue to focus on sustainability in whatever ways that we can, go above and beyond, like we did with the neutrality report. We will continue to do that. We
Yeah.
will continue to focus on solving needs of urban India when it comes to urban living spaces. What we are doing with our project Vida at Gift City is completely redefining the design concept in terms of giving out more community spaces to them. Design efficiency is not optimum, but living efficiency is optimum. So you'll have to
Okay.
you'll have to do that trade-off somewhere, where you are giving out something more to the consumer, and that eventually is going to come back to you because you are giving them spaces which have more. So one aspect of it is design, and very key aspect of it is design in terms of sustainability, because that goes on for a lot of years. I am
Yeah.
we're personally very excited in terms of all the opportunities that are coming about in urban India, especially in gift sort of pockets, which is evolving, as
Hmm.
I said, as an international city, which is seeing a lot of migration. So it gives us flexibility to try out new projects, which in a
Hmm.
conventional city we may not to be able to, because the buyers are not aware enough. The buyers are not ready to pay the kind of premium that would come in with it. More than premium, it's the mindset that comes in with it, the diversity that we need in terms of building it. So I think we'll continue to focus on sustainability, mental health for urban audiences. How can
Yeah.
we have living spaces which contribute positively to
Hmm.
your mental well-being? Because especially in areas like Gift, where we have the youth coming in, uh, possibly challenging sectors like IT services, fintech.
Hmm.
These are very
Yeah.
very challenging sectors which have
Very
rapidly
demand.
rapidly have a lot of ratios of these burnouts happening. I see this as a real urban problem, where
Hmm.
I think you are in a position to do something, because uh, apart from the office, it's the house that he spends maximum time in. So
True.
if you are able to do something about it, I think that's a big epidemic which is waiting to happen across urban areas.
True. So the I would like to say that you can. I mean, as a third person who's having a conversation with
Mhm.
you, can say that you would like to. I can distinguish you being very consumer centric. If I'm right, Neela Spaces being very
Yes,
consumer centric. That can also be a very a very distinctive part about your company. If I'm correct.
absolutely. And by see, I think we forgot to talk about the advantage that we have compared to
Exactly. That's
an
right.
incumbent, because we started out as a fresh company, a small company,
Exactly.
so we could ingrain that sort of culture. And I understand the challenges that old historic real estate companies face, because
Exactly.
they are building up on years of legacy. And while legacy is a big advantage, sometimes it slows you down, and which has happened across the board. And I think these are exciting times. It are exciting times in the market, because everybody is looking at your potential. Nobody is blindly buying legacy or a brand, and that's why
Yeah.
that's why you gotta love the consumer. and their intelligence. So we came into the gift city market as one of the new players, and we were competing likes of Sobha, who arguably is one of the largest real estate residential real estate developers in the country. And we are deeply inspired by brands like Sobha and what they've done for the country and for people. And for us to be able to operate in the same market as them in gift, do well, price our products in parity or sometimes even at premium, and people still buying it, was a big successful sign for us that if you focus on the quality of product and if you focus on the consumer's needs, then they are willing to come forward and buy, and also willing to give you that premium that you are asking them because of the quality of space that you're making. And I'm not when I talk about premium, I'm not talking about luxury or any of these premiums, just a basic premium in terms of they understand the effort that you've put in. It's not hard.
True. So Deep, I mean, we've learned about the industry, we've learned about Nila Spaces. I'd also like to learn about you because you are driving this entire right? And clearly you have a passion to do something different, which is not happening in the society right now. And given the fact that, this is still, like we said, it's not even at the nascent stage, to have that passion to drive something on such a level, is you have to be very, very, disciplined, so to say, being a player in the industry. So how do you manage that? What is your mindset and vision for yourself that helps you drive Nila Spaces as well? Right? What motivates you essentially to even come into and be a player in this field?
So two things. First is I am doing what I can, but as I said earlier on the podcast, I think we need a lot of them to come, a lot of us to come together and start this, because it's a very fragmented industry. As I said, government purely doing it in form of regulation is going to take a very long time, and maybe it's the amount of time that we don't have. We must do something about it. And I take a lot of inspiration in terms of doing something new, in terms of the new age demand requirements which are changing in urban areas. Like when we started out with Gift City, we were talking about this new consumer segment which is evolving, and the difference between a person who does not need more space and a person who does not want more space, who can't afford more space. Sorry. So the difference, especially in urban cities, is pretty much there. We see a very big vacuum. The problem is, as soon as you go for a smaller house, you get a stripped down version of an affordable house, but that's not what you want. You want a top of the line house, but you want small space because you're living here alone, or maybe a nuclear family is living here, and this is not my primary home. So I don't want large space. Now that's I can challenge you, barring maybe a couple of projects that I've come across in Bombay and one in Hyderabad. There are no real projects that that give you this flexibility. And I think we have more and more of these consumers coming into urban areas where they don't want more space. It's not that they cannot afford more space. So we're looking at shrinking spaces and leveling those spaces up. See, for a very long time, we've had this impression about luxury being defined by a specific price bracket or a specific area or a size of the house. I think that's quickly changing now because of the changing needs of the consumer.
Yeah, that's actually true. And since our podcast is called Startup Stories India, right? And we inspire a lot of entrepreneurs here, a lot of people starting off as founders, co-founders, and of course you take inspiration from other people and the players in the industry. They would be taking inspiration from you. So what is your piece of advice for them? Somebody may be entering into this business, or in general, as a CEO for Nila Spaces, I'm sure you must have seen a number of ups and downs, problems, challenges, opportunities. So, what is your advice to these young entrepreneurs coming in? And what do you think? What is the passion that they should be driving their endeavors with?
Regularly get to interact now with a lot of this youth, because we run a prop tech fund called Vision X, which is
Oh wow!
a humble $1 million fund to start with, and
Oh,
we're looking at the startup ecosystem there, and which is focused on prop tech, because personally I feel that this is the future. It is scalable,
yeah,
and we would want to be part of the ecosystem. So that allows me to interact with these youth, and there's so much to learn from them. uh, I learn a lot from them and the way that
true.
they think about the situation. Sometimes it's the experience of years which weighs us down, and the damages those experiences have done weigh us down in
Yeah,
terms of things that we can or we cannot do in our heads. And interacting with these people, it every time it makes me think how unlearning is so important as we turn adults, and something which we are
that's
unable to do. And I mean, my piece of advice to them is, of course, they have to be passionate. See, I come from an area which is very entrepreneurial. So when you come to
yeah,
Gujarat, most of these people have that entrepreneurial spirit. They have the acumen and the expertise as well, of doing something about it, being street smart. Uh, I just personally feel, one piece of advice that I can give most of the people is that every now and then it's very important for you to get a bird's eye view of what you're doing, because what I really feel when I interact with these people right now on the fund, or when I've historically interacted with the ecosystem which are starting out as
yeah,
entrepreneurs, they are so deep and passionate about what they're doing. Sometimes they are
true.
unable to take a step back and look at it in the third party perspective, in terms of does it really make sense. Sometimes
Yeah, a very holistic approach. Yeah,
another advice that I can probably give them is what nobody really talks about is, it's very important to fail, because there's nothing that you can learn with me telling you or you reading it in a book, unless you're going
yeah,
to go through a practical experience, fall somewhere. It's the fastest way to learn. Nobody
yeah,
talks about it. The biggest companies have had very, very miserable failures in terms of things that they've tried to do, and nobody really
yeah,
talks about it because it's not glamorous to talk about it. But yeah, don't be afraid to fail. I think it has a lot to teach you. Sounds very good, but I still get very dejected with failures, and it's not a happy place to be for anyone. And
yeah.
it's easier said, but now after so many years of experience, I personally feel that I have definitely learned more by doing the mistakes that I've done rather than doing the right things.
True, true. Extremely right. Deep, any parting comments that you have for us? Any last thoughts that you have that you'd like to say about the industry or Nila Spaces?
So, as
Or
Nila Spaces, as I told you, we'll continue to focus on the problem
yeah,
of urban living spaces, affordable housing. These are two sectors that we love. We personally love the prop tech segment. We believe in it. We believe in helping build scalable businesses in prop tech, because we see that is the area where the future is. As I said,
is
conventional real estate in its current form is not scalable as far as
hmm.
demography is concerned, and that's how it is historically been. And
Yeah,
those are not our ambitions. We would want to scale up with changing lives in whatever ways that we can, if by creating spaces, if by creating a product that changes lives in urban areas. But our focus is going to be affordable housing and urban areas.
yeah. So, Deep, thank you so much for talking about something that is, like I've said throughout the need of the hour, educating us about, and especially like I said in the beginning, I will be picking your brain and I will be taking away and learning through this, and I have personally learned so much about it. Maybe because I don't really give a lot of thoughts to this on a day-to-day basis, but of course now this jogs my mind just talking to you. So thank you so much for educating me and a number of people who will be hearing this podcast. And we wish Nila Spaces so much growth and so much success in the coming years. More power to you for doing something for the environment that a lot of people are not thinking about. So thank you so much for being a great contributing factor to our society, to our environment, and we wish you all the best and success. Thank you so much, Deep, for
Thank you
being
so
with
much,
us today.
Nanika, for having me and these lovely words.